All right. Welcome everyone to the toned paper squirrel drawing. Let me fix my camera here a little bit. I'm a little bit off center. As you can see, we just need 3 drawing instruments this evening. We need a pencil with an eraser, or if you have, another eraser, I use these kneaded erasers that are nice. We need a white colored pencil. And then also what I consider a micron type pen. Basically, it's a very fine tip pen. This I got from Amazon a while ago, and it does what I need. But check out the micron pens as well. Those are, as Jean just bought, you're going to find they're very smooth, very professional, very nice for these kind of drawings. And then also our gray toned paper. So we are going to get started with our pencil first. And if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat. And if you, what else? Yeah, any questions, or if you need to see something closer, I will be zooming in and out. But we're going to get started with the basic shape of our squirrel. And so we're going to be doing that. And basically, we won't be doing the details first. We just want to get the shape of our squirrel. So let me just one more time kind of adjust this camera. I thought I had it right, but I think I moved it. There we go. So we can see that we have some grasses and leaves on the bottom of our squirrel. We're not going to worry about that just yet. Right now, we are worrying about our squirrel. And you want to be drawing lightly, just enough so that you can see it, but we'll be going over everything using our black pen and also adding in our white colored pencil. So let's get started with the shape of our squirrel. We want to kind of be in the middle here of our landscape mode paper. Okay, so we also want to make sure that we leave room for that fluffy tail. So we're going to start with the back part of him. And so, as I mentioned, I'm going to be drawing darker so you can see it on Zoom. We will be able to erase some of this at the end, right before we create with the black pen. So no worries if you are sort of heavy-handed. So again, this is sort of his back, and we're going to go downward just a little bit and curve. And in order to make sure that his legs aren't too long, we're going to kind of stop about right here. So it should be kind of a circular portion of his body. If you find that as we're drawing the head that he's a little too close to his legs, you can always make the curve of his back a bit larger by kind of going like this. You can see that I created a little bit more of a hump a little bit higher. And I may end up doing that with mine. But for now, we're going to go like this. And then his neck is coming right off of that. We have a little bit of a bend here because of his neck. And I'm going to go in just a little bit closer so you're able to see. And straighten this out just a little bit. There we go. Okay. So continuing onward, this is his neck. And we're going to start off with his first ear, which is sort of triangular shaped, like so. I'm going to let everybody catch up. I know that was quite a bit fast. So I'm just going to let everyone catch up. I'm going to take a sip of my... Oh, I did not bring up my tea. I will not be taking a sip of my tea. I forgot it downstairs. Okay. I also wanted to remind everyone, make sure that you are on speaker view. That way you can see this video large rather than gallery view. If you're on gallery view, then you'll see everyone and you'll see my square smaller, but you want to be able to see this larger. So continuing on here, here is his neck. We have his ear that we just made, and we're going to make his head in between that ear. And it's a side view. And we can right away make the other ear kind of sticking out, and we just see a little of it. So we kind of want a shortened triangular shape, like so. And so we're going to continue now with his nose area. For now, we're going to make it look like this. And then we have a little bit of a, part of his mouth over here as well. Okay. Ah, sorry, Lisa. I just saw your your note. Yes, I do need an assistant. I agree. I'm actually thinking about that. Okay. So this is his mouth. This is a little bit curved right underneath there. Yes. I Chris is pretty much my unofficial assistant. Chris is my husband, for those that don't know, and he gets roped into lots of things. Like I was just talking to an in-person class that I had today, and I brought out sharpened pencils, a big bag of them. And somebody said, "Wow, did you sharpen all those?" I said, "No, actually, my husband Chris did during football. So that's what I give him during when he's watching football." Um, lucky him. Okay. So continuing, we are now going to create a little more of the neck area. And then we're going to have his hands coming over here. So we have this part, and then we've got his arm, and his arm is kind of folded up because he's holding his acorn. So this is sort of his elbow area. And then we create his hand, which for now is kind of going to be a shape like this. So his hand is going to be holding the acorn. I'm moving this just a little more closer to our page here. And then we're going to kind of create the shape of that acorn in his hand right now. And so we kind of go around, and it gets pointed at the bottom, like so. I'm going to do that a little darker. And then we'll come back to that later on. But we now want to start in with his legs. So we have his elbow here. We know that his legs, or his, it sounds so funny, I don't know. I'm assuming that they have knees. his legs, I'm going to say his legs, are going to come about right here. So we start off with this shape. They're going to come up towards his elbow and bend a little bit like this. This is the first leg. And we have another leg, the other one, that is on the other side, and we see a little bit of this. And then we have his feet, which for now we can make this shape, and we will go back and make sure that he has 3 little toes. And we're going to do the same with this foot. And then we start to connect it with the rest of his body. So I'm kind of looking at mine and I want to make him a little bit taller because this portion should be rather short. It shouldn't be all the way out to here. So I'm going to fix that on mine and you're welcome to join me. The way we do that is to shorten the line, this bottom line here. We curve upward, but kind of just as I imagined. It has to kind of, there's a bit more of a bump up here. And it might not be as short as I initially wanted. Maybe I'm going to move it up just a little bit more. We just want this to be a little shorter. So he's going to curve and we have his bump. So if you're finding that this portion looks a little bit too long, that's how you want to fix it. Mine was a bit too long and I sort of suspected that as we were doing it, but I thought, well, maybe not. Also, the curve that happens right over here is also important for the squirrel because if not, this just will look like this. And it looks sort of flat, meaning this is like his foot part. And so adding that curve here to the bottom is very helpful. I'm just going to erase this now. Just checking in with everybody. Okay. Making sure everyone is on the same page pretty much. Okay. And now we're going to get to his fluffy tail. So his fluffy tail is going to start here at the bottom. And we're going to go up. And it's going to kind of swing outward away from his body. And then it's going to curve back in slightly. So we sort of add a bit of a straight line. So we curve. We add a little bit of, not a straight line because it's angled, but the angled line is sort of straight. And then we're going to come out with a fluffy end of the tail. And this is just the overall shape. And then you can go back toward the body. And you have sort of a shape like this, a general shape that you have for the tail. And then we're going to add the bottom portion of the landscape. So I'm going to move my camera a little more so you can see that. And actually, I think I'm going to put this above, like so. All right. So with our landscape, we have rocks happening. We have some leaves. We also have some grasses, and we have some mushrooms. I'm going to move in a little closer here. There we go. And now we're going to start with all of that. You can also see that we use our pencil for the shading as well. So let's get started with drawing our shapes for the landscape. So over here on the left, we have some stones. So kind of shaped like this. We have kind of three stones here. Like so. We have some little pile of leaves happening over here. I should also mention that if it doesn't look exactly like mine, that's okay. You know, you can add and subtract things from this drawing and make it your own. So we also have some kind of foliage happening here, a little bit of some bumpy land indicated by, just curvy lines. And then we also have a leaf right here. And we start to have some other leaves that are happening throughout this location. Going to bring us to the right side here where we have, in the background here, you can see that we have some also leaves and our mushroom. I actually have two mushrooms. There's a smaller one right next to it. Along with some rocks. And again, we have some more rocks and leaves and debris here. You can see that, we've created that, or we are creating that with some lines, just kind of simple bumps and lines. And then also some more various leaves that are kind of strewed about on the ground. And here again, you can either include those, you can omit them, you can add some flowers if you like. There are some very creative artists that take my classes, and it's evident by, they add things like they add color to, things like this. They do all sorts of really amazing stuff that I would never think about after I create my sample. So it's really interesting to see how people, um, you know, do something else to these drawings or this art. Really cool. So if you are happy right now with the drawing portion of the bottom landscape, we're going to come up to the squirrel once again. And we're going to draw in his eye and some of his features with the pencil. And then we're going to start, basically, we start to use the pen for all of this, which is the really fun part. All of it's fun, but I think it's really neat to be using, the pen for the fur. And we can practice that right before we do it. If you have another like small piece of paper somewhere. But let's get to drawing his eye first and some of his features. And then, we'll make sure that we have a little something off to the side to practice on before we start all of our fur making. Okay, so coming right up to his face again, we're going to go into the ears and we're just going to make a little bit of a sort of a triangular shape inside the ear over here, because we will be going back to that and eventually filling that in with a little bit of pencil. And then that's going to bring us to the eye. And so the eye shape is sort of football shaped, kind of, but it's a bit round at the bottom. And it basically comes to 2 points at the edges, a point here and a point here. So, we get rounded and then we kind of get a little rounded again at the top. We make a bit of a half circle there. And I'm going to put this up close so that you can see. And we're also going to make a highlight in the middle of the eye by kind of drawing another slight football shape there. And now we have the center of the eye. And then this is going to lead us to the nose, where we just want to add a little bit of a detail here if you haven't already. Sort of it's a little pointy there, like so. And we're also going to add a mouth, like so. Now we have a few more distinguishing features, actually just one that I do want to add to this. So coming from the chin, we kind of want to add a little bit of a line here just to indicate the shape of his face. We're going to be going back to that. And again, we're going to be covering all of this with our pen, but we want to make sure that we maintain some shape because it's hard to do that once you start in with the pen. Which is going to bring me now to, if you have another small piece of paper, or if you can find another small piece of paper, it can be a white piece of paper. So it can be, I'm going to grab like a piece of printer paper. This is just so we can practice our lines before we start. So, okay. All right. So with our fur, you can also do it on the back of your paper if you don't have something close by. But we want to get used to making different kinds of lines for the fur. So for instance, if we're talking about the tail, our tail is going to be kind of quick. Some of it's going to be elongated, like so. We're also going to be adding really small strokes for the body fur, right? Like that. And we're also going to be cross hatching, which is something like this. So when we start to get into the darker areas, to make it darker, we go over it again, right? Multiple times, and you can see that it's getting darker. And then sometimes we're going to go back and go the opposite way so that there really is, why is my camera fuzzy? There we go. So you can see, first I've gone this way and then I cross over, and that's called cross hatching. Hatching is just a single lines like this. So then cross hatching is going the opposite way and crossing right over it. Okay. And what else? I think that's about it as far as, and you can kind of experiment, you can go very slow, and make very tiny strokes, which will be making these for the fur on the body. So let's get started now. At this point, if you have created your squirrel or anything with the pencil and it's dark, you want to do a little bit of lightening up. I'm going to be doing that because mine is darker so you can see it on Zoom, but I'm just going to lighten it up just a little bit. We will have the chance to lighten it up as we are drawing as well. And so we are going to start off with our tail. So going towards our tail, we have an imaginary line that is happening right around here. And we're going to take our pencil one more time, and we're going to make an imaginary line that's going to start from his back and go up like right here. So that's sort of an imaginary line. You can draw it very lightly. The reason we're going to do that is we're going to start making fur come out of that line. And that's going to give the impression of that the fur on the back of the squirrel on the other side is a little bit darker, and that it's going to give it some three-dimensionality. So let's start off now with the fur, but we're going to start near the bottom of the tail. And so we're going to start making lines like this. I'm going to go a little closer now so that you can see this. So we're making curved lines going up the body, and we're going to go right onto the line that we just created for the middle of the tail. I'm just playing with the light a little here. And you can clearly see that in this with the way that it's darker. And so we're now going to go on this side, and we're going to make hairs that come out from this center line and going like this. So nice and bushy. And we're going the full extent of this side of the tail. And we're going to go upwards and around. So I just moved so you can see. Hold on, I think my pen is running out. Let's try this one. Oh, much better. All right, so we're going to go up and around, and we're going to go all the way to the end here, but it's going to get a little bit less bushy in the sense of as we're coming around here, we leave some more open space, and we kind of create our fur to be a little bit more spread out on that tail. We can always go back and add more. But we're now creating that furry shape toward the end of the tail, and it should start to be looking more bushy now because of it. Now we're going to start getting into this side of the tail. And where you have the end of your shape here, you want to start to make sort of fur sticking out on that line, because we're going to be erasing that line soon. This is just so we know how wide we want our tail. And then we're going to do the same thing and start to make the fur sort of, you know, in spaces or leave spaces for the fur. We have the strokes going in different directions. And then we can go back and we're going to add more fur. We're also going to make it darker against the body. But for now, let's add some fur like this. So right now it almost looks like somebody shaved shaved his tail. So he's got these little hairs sticking out, but we'll go back and make it furrier. I want to give everybody a chance to catch up with that. And then we're going to start adding more lines for the fur. So first, we're going to make it a lot darker, remember, along the way, or along, I'm sorry, along the way of the tail part that's leaning against the body. So we're going to go back and we're going to make another section of dark fur. If you have to do it twice, you can do that. You have to do it 3 times, you can do that too. I want to make mine just a little bit darker. And then in order to make it look realistic, you're going to go back with your pen and you're going to kind of fill in the space between the tail and the body so that there's now a defining space between the tail and the body. And you can now see that that's a bit darker. And now we're going to continue building the tail up. So we're going to be adding more fur in between the spots that we started adding. And this is how we build up our fur. We're going to do the same thing with the body. The body is going to be even shorter, shorter pieces of fur, shorter strokes, I should say, not shorter pieces. That was a really weird way to put it. Shorter strokes. I don't know if anybody else feels like this, but I feel like by the end of the night, I lose my words. So you can also, fill in any spots on the tail that you think, oh, maybe I want to have that a little bit bushier. We do want it a little bit darker towards, this side. And then also, again, where we created it darker against the body, you might want to go back in and just add another layer of fur, just depending on what yours looks like. And then we're going to start on the body. But before we do that, we want to then erase any pencil that we created for the drawing part of the tail. So that is now completely pencil free for now. We will go back and do some shading with our pencil, but we're now going to go to the eye of our squirrel. So let's do that. So now we're going to outline the eye of our squirrel. So the whole shape first, and then we're going to fill in with our black pen the entire eyeball shape. Like so. And now we're going to start to create the outside shape of our squirrel by adding some strokes of curved lines in the spots where we drew the outside line in pencil. So, for instance, I'm going to come back here, right, towards his neck. I'm going to start creating, following the line for his neck. And I'm going to go in really close now. So here's the line for his neck. You can see it vaguely. I'm going to add fur a little bit above it because I want it to be just a little bit thicker. And now I'm going to start to create the shape of the squirrel using the black pen. We're going to do the same. Basically, it's almost like we're outlining again, but this time we're using furry strokes. And they can just be a few. Doesn't have to be a whole lot. So for instance, I just did that now with the back of him. We're going to do it with his ears. This ear. The other ear is kind of furry, so kind of that going on. I'm going to let everybody catch up. Okay. So we're going to continue around his face, right around this spot. I'm going to make him a little bit, his face just a little bit thicker over here. So I'm going to start toward his nose, but I'm actually, let's kind of make his nose in the ink. And then also the bottom of his, like the inside of his mouth, kind of want to color like a little sliver there. Like so. Kind of looks like he's smiling. He's a little happy. And then the bottom of his chin kind of goes back towards his body. And now let's start sort of where his other eye would be, which is about right here on the other side. And we're going to start to make fur going upward from there. So our fur starts from where the other eye would be that you can't see, but this is a little bit of an indication of that other eye. And we go upward in between the ears as well. So again, right now we're just kind of almost redoing the lines around the fur. But instead of in pencil, we're covering the pencil with strokes. All right, so now we're going to go kind of underneath his jawline here. And so we're going to create some lines like this to make that shape. We are going to go under his neck, and we're going to make some sticking out here like this, which will then lead us into his arm. And we're going to create the acorn now using pen. We're going to start at the top, and we're going to add a stem like so. And you can see that the stem is in the middle of the acorn on the top. You can then erase inside the stem the little line for the acorn that was there, because they might confuse you. And then we're going to create the little shapes for the acorn texture. We're going to go around once. It's a little layered, and then we go around again. With some little pieces that we add on. We're also going to draw his fingers. He has 4, so we have, they're curving, and we've got a real little one here. And with that, we can draw then the shape of the acorn. That's going to bring us to under this arm area, and we're going to create strokes that go this way. And then some that go this way that are in between his hand and his fur. We're going to add a little bit of some kind of darker strokes right here for a little bit of his belly. And then we're going to start to go into his leg. The outline of his leg. And the other leg is fur. So that shape that we created, you can now make strokes of fur in the shape. It's kind of like, it's like a portion of a circle. But you just want to make strokes of fur. That's in the background there. And we're going to take this opportunity to create the feet. We do want to create a little bit of fur that's kind of hanging down on both sets of the feet before we make those. So something like that. And then we make the feet. We're also going to go around the bottom here. So we have this line here, right? That's indicating the flatness of his body. We just have that there so that we know we're going to need to create some fur kind of hanging in between that line and on the ground. So what we do is we basically make fur like this for right now. And then once you do that, you can erase the pencil. And you can make another set of those strokes. And we're going to go to the landscape for now, and then we'll come back up to the rest of the squirrel. So with our landscape, oops, here we are. So I'm going to bump up my camera again so you can see the original landscape. And so what we're going to do is we're now going to ink in parts of our landscape. So let's move this up. We're going to start off in the back here, and this is all going to be very quick drawn strokes because we've already drawn them, and we want them to be sort of light and airy. So once we do that, we're then going to erase the pencil, and then we'll be adding it back on for shading, but we want to erase the pencil lines that we create after we draw it in ink. So let's start over here, and we're just going to quickly do that shape. We can add some grasses. We're now doing our mushrooms, you know, and again, we're going to go back and make some parts a little darker. Let's add some lines in the toadstool section. So again, we are just kind of quickly creating some of these shapes. We are copying over them in pen. You know, you're welcome to, you know, add some more leaves or stones as you see fit. But basically, we've already created the shapes. The only thing we have to do is go back, and we're going to add some greenery on this side like that. So I'll give everyone time to finish that. And when you're done with that, you're going to erase the pencil. You can also take this opportunity to do the same with the squirrel. Kind of erase the pencil. Under the squirrel for now. Now you're going to go back and make a few things a little darker, like underneath the um, the top of the mushroom. You can make that a little bit darker. Let's see, where else? It's not too much else darker. Because we're going to go back with our pencil for shading. So we're going to jump back into the squirrel in a second. Let me adjust my camera again. Okay. So into the squirrel we go. We're going to go around the eye first. And basically, we're going to leave space and then create almost like what looks like eyelashes going around. And then the other way underneath the eye. Very close together. And then from there, we're going to start adding strokes of the hair in his face. Can go in different directions, but when it gets to the nose, we don't want to go on the nose. We're going to kind of make like a separating line. You can see that now. You can go a little underneath his nose toward the top of his mouth. And we're now filling in the space with strokes, lines. I like to go in sort of straight lines with the fur up top here. But then when we get to the arm, kind of vary the direction a bit. And just take your time. I'll give everyone time to catch up. We're going to go over some of this again. And our strokes are going to get a little bit longer as we go towards the back of our squirrel. So here we have the hairs going this way. And now we're going to start going to the back of the squirrel like so. And at first we skip lots of space. Some of our lines can get closer together as it's towards the leg. And then as we get on the leg, we change direction with our strokes a little bit. I always like to start off with small strokes, and then we go back and add more, because you can always add more. I like to add some really tiny ones toward where the tail meets the body, just to get it to be a little bit darker. So I'm kind of pointing where I'm doing that. I also do it the bottom part here, but above the bottom part, I add some more little hairs. And I also add some dark ones, again, right up against where the body is hitting the tail. Again, just making those a little bit darker on the side of the body. Also want to darken up underneath his elbow, where this is sort of where his stomach is. It's kind of leaning. And now we're just kind of filling in some more hairs. And we don't want to forget about the ear over here. We're going to make that have some hairs on the outside. And then just a little bit of black shading on the inside. And then we have 2 more steps until we're finished. We're going to switch to our pencil. And we're going to shade a little bit. So basically, we're going to shade on the tail. So we're using our pencil on the side. We're going to shade on the tail. We're going to shade closest to the body. right where the dark part is. We're going to go on the body and also shade on the back. And again, closest to the tail. So on the fur, closest to the tail. So you can see that I'm doing that right here. We're also going to go back into the tail and we're going to shade on the edge of the fur as if we are kind of making a line again, but this time with shading. We're also going to shade behind the ear on the body part. We're going to shade at the top of his head in between the two ears and then around his eyes where we added, those sort of eyelash type strokes. You're going to shade on his nose. The hairs under his chin. And then a little bit in this section of his leg toward the bottom where his body meets the ground. You're going to shade on his feet, but only right at the beginning on where they're kind of coming out of his body, so not his toes. So I'm kind of pointing, so here and here. And now we're going to go into the landscape. And you're going to go around the leaves pretty much. So basically the ground. So going around leaves and some stones for now. And it doesn't have to be nice and neat. It can kind of be scribbly. Like it doesn't have to be even as far as the shading. It can be kind of scribbly and darker in some areas. Definitely like it to be darker underneath the squirrel, his body. And we add a little bit of shading behind him so it looks like, it's a landscape there. You can also add some shading, going back up to the squirrel, on the bottom portion of your acorn. And then we're finally going to be grabbing our white colored pencil. So this is where we're going to be adding some of the lights, the light parts. So we want to go into the edge of the tail. Kind of going along the edge of the tail, closest to the landscape. And then throughout his body, you're going to kind of pick spots. So for instance, I'm just going to show this up close. Like I'm kind of making white lines throughout his fur on the body, all throughout his fur, so that it looks like, there's parts of his fur that are lighter. And that's all throughout his body. Up to his head. You can make it a little lighter around the bottom of his mouth. But as far as where his fur is concerned, just creating kind of, it's not really dots of white. It's really, again, strokes. I like to color his hands a lighter color using the white. Parts of the top of the acorn. His little toes. And again, you can keep going in the body part, the fur, adding white. And then you're going to finally go into the landscape. And you're going to just kind of scribble in some white on each section so that it looks like, there's a light part, maybe on some of the leaves. Again, it doesn't have to be perfectly neat. I like to do the whites of the on the toadstool as well, the round circles. And that is our toned paper squirrel. And I'm so curious to see what everyone's looks like. So I'm going to stop the recording and remove my spotlight. And then you can go on gallery view. And if you want to unmute, you can do that as well. So let me stop the recording first. Where am I recording?